In a moment. In the meantime, what should happen next in Iraq? Some historians are reminding us now that the quote-unquote modern borders of Iraq were only created by the Allies after World War I and doesn't really reflect a unified country or the ancient hostilities of various ethnic and religious groups. In fact, retired Lieutenant Colonel and Fox News contributor Ralph Peters suggests dividing Iraq into three separate entities as a solution, giving the Kurds, the Sunnis, and the Shias their own countries. Is this viable? Would it stop the violence? My next guest is skeptical about this. Tom Joscelyn, a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defensive Democracies and senior editor of the Long War Journal, which I encourage our viewers to check out. Tom, why the skepticism about this? Because we're hearing a lot about if we just let all sides go to their corners, things will be better. Why do you not think that's the case? Well,
the problem right now is nobody's drawing borders in the Middle East. As you can see from the chaos and the fighting there right now, no one's in the capacity to actually say, okay, you guys are going to have your own country, and the Kurdish North and the Shiites are going to have their own country, and the Sunnis are going to have their own country. And even if they did, that's not going to stop the fighting. I mean, this basically...
Why not?
Well, think about what the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant is all about. They're a transnational jihadist group. They're all about creating this Islamic caliphate and resurrecting their power. They're going to keep going to the Shiites, keep fighting the Shiites no matter what, even if they were given their own state.
That said, what should we do?
Well, I don't think there's any substitute for American leadership, and I've been warning about this for a while, and unfortunately, we don't have any American boots on the ground in Iraq, which really could have done a lot to basically stymie this whole offensive we're witnessing. Right now, we basically have to do what we can with the cards we have to play, and part of that is dealing with Maliki's government, unfortunately. You know, that doesn't mean necessarily empowering the Iranians, though, what you're seeing.
I was just going to ask you about that. When you're talking about the cards to play, it's been bipartisan in nature. We've seen Secretary Kerry come out and say that's something that could happen, speaking with the Iranians and creating some sort of unified force or strategy with them, but you also saw that from Senator Graham, a Republican. What do you think about that?
Well, Iran doesn't want stability. What Iran wants is power and influence. And in fact, this same mistaken assumption was applied all the way back in 2003. Tony Blair's written about this in his memoirs and in testimony before Parliament. He said that basically his advisors came to him and said, the Iranians are going to help us stabilize Iraq. Tony Blair has written about how wrong that really was, how Iran basically did everything in their power to destabilize Iraq. They're not going to do anything to stabilize the Sunni areas. What they want to do is consolidate their influence in the Shiite areas. And it's not, and the more the Maliki's coming to them for help, the more the Shiites are coming to them for help, the stronger they get. That doesn't weaken the conflict.
Was that part of the reason why this conflict has emerged to begin with?
Absolutely. Iran, here's the most amazing thing about all this. From July 2011 on, the Obama administration itself, in several different designations and announcements, has said that Iran is actually working with al-Qaeda. They do this even as al-Qaeda is against them in Syria and against their client in Syria, right? So this is the type of double game that Iran's playing in all this. The idea that we're going to go to them now and somehow work a deal out where they're going to be on our side is just really false.
Tom, I know one of the things that you really look at is the rise of terrorism across all areas, really, in the world. One of the things that hasn't received a lot of attention, news items today, is there was a big attack in Kenya by Islamic militants. Nearly 50 people killed watching the soccer game in hotels there. And we're seeing the rise of this very violent Islamic terrorist groups, a variety of them across Africa, North Africa, going into Syria and now Iraq. Are we too hyper-focused on Iraq, trying to find a solution? Do we need a more broad policy about how we're looking across this swath of area of the world that's really coming under threat to Islamic terrorists in general?
We definitely need a broader policy. I'll give you just one quick stat. There's this new study from Rand Institute that came out. They basically said in 1988, when al-Qaeda was founded, there were 3 jihadist groups. In 2001, there were 22. Today, there are 49. Okay? So al-Qaeda set out in 1988 to spark a political revolution to inspire jihadism around the globe. They've succeeded. We've still not come up with a real strategy for containing or combating that across the board.
What would be the start of that strategy?
Well, you know, we've talked about this a little bit before. One of the key points here is that most of their violence is still directed at Muslims. Many of the people that are really their potential recruits are actually the victims of their terrorism, right? And that needs to be a consistent message, whether it be in Somalia, Kenya, Africa, or anywhere in Africa, all the way through Iraq, that most of the people they're killing are Muslims. And these are not the types of organizations you want to join if you're an ordinary Muslim, because they're committed to violence against you.
But just real quick, that doesn't abdicate American leadership in that issue, if the violence is mainly focused on fellow Muslims.
No, what it actually says is that America has millions of Muslim allies around the world, and all America needs to do is step up and ally ourselves with these groups in different areas. Look in Iraq. We had people in western Iraq who were on our side against al-Qaeda during the height of the surge. Unfortunately, we abdicated that role.
Just real quick, where are the Saudis on this? Speaking of our Muslim allies, where are they?
Well, just like the Iranians are duplicitous in how they deal with this stuff, I think the Saudis are duplicitous as well.
Interesting. We'll look at as these partnerships or proposed partnerships come up. We'll rely heavily on your expertise. Tom, thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see you.